And welcome, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Football Breakdown, focused on the offense with gorgeous Al Borges. He's gorgeous even after Michigan loses.
Not quite as gorgeous, so Sam.
Yeah, hey, look, man, you got to come win or lose, rain or shine, sleet or snow, as they say. This is when, ironically, people want to hear you the most.
Yeah,
Uh,
but Sam, this is painful. This is
yes,
painful. I mean, I can't deal with. I don't like losing to SC, as you well know, to start with.
no, I do
But
know.
in the manner and fashion that we lost makes it all the more excruciating, Sam. But
Yes,
gotta talk about why, right? That's what we do, Sam. We talk about why. We don't talk about what. Everybody knows what. Hell, I saw the scoreboard, but now we got to talk about why.
yeah, this is when the audience is most captive.
Yeah.
And we try to be as descriptive as possible, especially in the absence of the film studies, when we aren't pointing to actual, like, plays. Try to be as descriptive, because the waters tend to get muddied, as I said last week.
Right.
So try to give people as much of a stencil as possible for why we're saying what we're saying about what's
Mhm.
going on the field. And so definitely going to do that this week with what was you know, a tip your cap to USC. They got it done on both sides of the ball, where they just they owned that game in every respect. They pushed Michigan around, uh, you know, uh, on both sides of the ball. They schemed them on both sides of the ball. You just got to tip your caps to them and say they got it done.
Do I
The
have to?
only silver lining, as I turn it over to you, Al, is, as bad as it was, and it was bad. There are some things that they could actually clean up. If they can focus, they could actually clean some things up and be better coming out of this. Correct some things coming out of this, moving forward. If they can identify those things and actually focus on them during this week of practice.
Yeah, I think they're not. Hell, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You've heard me say that before, and I think there's still a light at the end of the tunnel. This season is anything but lost now. They can still have all uh, their goals in front of them. I mean, they've only lost 2 football games, and they got a young quarterback who's developing on a week-to-week basis. And I look at the schedule. All games look winnable to me, Sam, including the last one. They're all winnable. All right. So what they have to do is remedy some of the problems on both sides of the ball. Okay, because there's issues on both sides of the ball. Uh, although we don't talk much about that, but this was a game that had to be, in my opinion, okay, and this is in retrospect, but a little bit beforehand too. It had to be won with keep away. This SC was running hot. I don't think anybody argued that. They were running warm. Even when they weren't scoring, the ball was moving. Okay. So, in that regard, you don't have it. And when you don't have it, they do. And they were moving the football. The only thing that kept it really close, if I was honest with myself, is a couple of turnovers. One, particularly after a little wide delay, they ran, I think it was tight and scream. And they broke it big. And then we got a fumble, which was good. But the thing I've learned coaching offensive football is when you get a turnover, but it's after a big play, after you've gained a bunch of yardage, offense lose very little confidence. They just say, "Well, they can't stop us. Let's hold on the ball. We'll be all right. Just hold on the ball." So now, if you get stoned and you get a turnover, you're not getting any first downs. That's a different story. Okay, but when you're moving the ball, a turnover does not affect the morale or the resolve of the offensive team near as much as it does if you're not moving the ball. So I think that was a factor. But to win this game, Michigan was going to have to be more keep away. I mean, they lost the time of possession significantly. And this is a game, because of the way SC was playing offensively, that was going to have to be a time of possession game. And I've talked about time of possession ad nauseum. Sometimes it's irrelevant. In Michigan's case, though, the past years, it's seldom irrelevant because of their style of play. Certain guys play different. They don't care about time of possession. We're just going to score more points and to discuss. Michigan has not played that way. So they had to keep the ball away from USC, but Saturday, they were not equal to that. They had one beautiful 14-play drive. But aside from that, it was inconsistent play by different players on different plays. But it was just not the type of game that they can win, okay? There were a lot of factors outside the offense. I mentioned the defense. The punting was very average. The field position was not what it could have been. That's the kind of game you got to play, particularly on the road when you want to take the crowd out of it and do all those things. They just never were able to do that. Now, there's a lot of reasons, okay? Bryce did not throw the ball as accurately as he could have. I had him with 5 bad throws. And I think one of the things he's got to do is, as well as he throws the ball off platform, and I think that's a part of his game. That's a good part of his game. He's got to attempt to throw more balls on platform so that those pitch and catch throws are more reliable. You understand? Because he's going to make those other plays. He did it in the game. He made a beautiful little RPO where he threw the ball sidearm and hit the guy, and he does some stuff now. But he's got to throw more balls on platform on time and become week to week improve his pocket skills, because that's the one thing that I think he has to up the ante in his game is he has to improve how he plays within the confines of the pocket, because he's going to be asked to do that because he's very capable. He's very capable of that. But that is, and we mentioned before, there's a lot of components to drop back passing, and you are dependent on pass protection, guys getting open, that type of thing. And he's still kind of learning how to do that. Their approach with RPOs were the same. Hell, I had them with 24 times there was an RPO tag to the run. Now, again, they didn't throw them all, but they did use the RPOs a lot. They ran 9 stretch plays. They ran the inside zone quite a bit, which was good at times, 12 times, as a matter of fact. I had 4 duos. They only ran 1 naked. Now, one thing, if I had to look at it again, and again, I yell with this always after the fact, is he is good out of the pocket, and I had him with 2 sprints and 1 naked, maybe a little more outside the pocket passing. Might have been, I don't know how much that would help, but it is something that he does do well. Run 1 counter, 1 pounder, 1 power. A couple quarterback draws, and that's another thing I think might have helped a little bit, is him running the football a little bit more, adding that. Because I know when quarterbacks aren't throwing the ball as well, but have the ability to beat you with their legs, it's a way for them to gain confidence. Okay, so I think there was an area where you could have maybe done that a little bit more. Like I said, they had a great 14-play drive. I mean, the balance was good. The play calling was impeccable. It was really nicely done, and they had a great. He made a hell of a throw on the little play pass off a stretch where they ran the guys on crossing routes. He made a great throw for a touchdown that was very impressive. But as much as I felt in this game, the offensive line from a pass protection perspective was not that bad. They were not that bad. I had several times, every time when I grade the tape, I put a little note, good pro or pressure or sack. I'll always have a little note what happened on a play. And there were several occasions where he had an opportunity to make some throws. So the protection was not god awful, although there was times, I'm not going to say it was perfect, because there was times that it was a little shaky. But from an overall perspective, there was opportunities there to do some things. Okay. Now, if it was going to be a shootout, Sam, I don't think Michigan's winning this game. Okay. If it was going to be a constant exchange of scores without one team ending up impatient on the sideline waiting for the ball, I think SC was going to win the game unless that happened. You had to have them tapping their foot on the sideline saying, when are we going to get this thing? I mean, we can move the ball on these guys. And then what happens is they get impatient and they get in the game, and the quarterback starts feeling a sense of urgency that may not be necessary, and you get some turnovers and make some mistakes. I think that happened to us a little bit at the end when Bryce threw the interception. I think that he locked into that throw because the guy in the flat was open, but I think he locked into that throw, and the outside receiver, I believe, got hung up. And it was just a forced throw that, he hasn't thrown many. And I mentioned it last week. He's had very, very few turnovers. He's been phenomenal, particularly when you consider he's such a young player. But that happens when you get behind, or you feel like you're not producing at the level that you expect. You start trying to force the issue, and that gets you in trouble as a quarterback. As soon as you decide before the snap of the ball or that you're going to make this throw come hell or high water, you start getting yourself in trouble. So I think it was a combination of some mediocre play up front. Some the receivers I liked. I graded them pretty well. I thought the receivers did a pretty good job, but everybody else was kind of mediocre. And against a team like this that's running hot, particularly offensively, you're just going to struggle. It was my biggest concern, and I said it going into the game, is we didn't want them to get a real fast start and get their crowd into the game and get, and they did. They got a fast start, even though they didn't score a lot of points. They were moving the ball, and that is demoralizing and gives them more confidence that they will eventually score enough points. So that's kind of the way I saw it.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack. Yeah, they didn't get a fast start. My biggest concern in this game was, would Michigan be able to stop the run? If you accept that USC, and I know we focus mostly on offense, but it all plays into the flow of the game.
Oh, it's team
games.
Yeah,
how the game is played, how the game is played offensively, right? Would Michigan be able to stop the run? And they didn't stop the run. It affects everything. I think it affects, as you see your young quarterback. You talking about him forcing that throw. I talked to Denard about this, and maybe you can get into the mindset of a young quarterback. That whole drive, I mean, they had great rhythm. It was looking very much like that 14-play drive where they had great mix of run and pass. He was hitting some, making great decisions. And on that play, Al, and the way I distinguish it from the play against Oklahoma, I was talking to Denard about this. It was different in that, that Oklahoma play, they were on the hash. You had a safety sitting on the hash, and ill-advised from the standpoint of you don't want to really be trying to throw a ball down the sideline when there's, safety sitting over the top on the hash. You had pocket travel, right? But he was very intentional. If you remember, he's reading the coverage. He holds that safety. And then he delivers the pass with pinpoint accuracy on the back shoulder of the receiver. All of this is very, very focused. This play in this game, Al, as soon as the ball is snapped, he is dead set focused. I'm throwing it come hell or high water to this receiver, like you said, forcing it to him. I don't care what happens. I'm throwing it to number one. This is clearly a flow of the game. Denard said, used to tell him, you can't score 14 points with one touchdown.
No, touchdown. I can't do that. Yeah.
One touchdown right there.
You heard me tell him that several times. He said that. He says they know 21-point touchdowns. They know 14-point touchdowns. That just doesn't happen. So
right. Everything affects everything. And so I found myself, as I'm replaying the game, you had a quarterback that never really got into a full rhythm. And I found myself wanting to ask you a couple of things. Hey, what's the best way, as you've assessed it over the course of 6 games now, how would you achieve rhythm with your young quarterback, with Bryce? I ask that for a couple of reasons. He seems to be most comfortable throwing on the move, seems to have happy feet in the pocket at times, or a lot of times. And then the other thing is, I'm like you. I was like, man, seems like getting him more involved. My answer a lot of times is get him involved in the run game. And a lot of it to me in this game was, man, get him on the edge, get him outside, because they seem to be somewhat vulnerable in that regard. And they never really tried that in this game. And that would seem to be a way to maybe get the juices flowing from a playmaking standpoint as well. And they never really seem to try to do that with him in this game.
Well, early in the game, the way the game started, they did kind of try and do that. Well, the first play was an RPO where they threw a fade, okay, and was incomplete. And the thing that's happened with Bryce on the fade balls is he's rushing the throws a little too much, and he's inaccurate with them. He's not giving the receiver a chance because he's not just setting his feet and stroking the throw, and that was. But the second play, he checked the ball down on a little stick route, which was a high percentage throw, confidence builder type throw. His next throw after a couple runs was a naked, which he completed for a 7-yard gain. So you know how the coordinator's thinking, right? I mean, he said, okay, We got to get him some throws he can complete so we gain some confidence. On play 9, it was 2nd and 7. He hits a little completion on an out to Marsh, okay, which was a nice play, kept the chains moving. They ran the ball a few more times, and then they got down. It was 3rd and 4 and had a false start, and it ended up 3rd and 9, which resulted in they tried to throw a shallow cross, which was bad down and distance for that situation, and the drive got killed. But he was trying early to get him some throws that he could complete, and then the next drive. Again, after a few running plays, they ran a little drive smash that was incomplete because of a bad throw and footwork such. And then on 3rd and 3, completed. They ran open zone and kept the drive going. 2nd and 7, they ran. We said they were going to run a little takeoff off their dash. Remember that? They attempted that, but SC blitzed him and they tipped the pass. He had to throw it hot because the running back was slipping into the flat, and he tried to slip him the ball and he tipped it incomplete. But then it's 3rd and 7. He throws a beautiful turn in off. He had a drive route going to the field, a little hooking route into the boundary, and he completed the ball to McCulley for a first down on 3rd and 7. So he's back in rhythm. Things are not looking that bad at this point. You know what I mean? But again, they get down there again. He gets another false start, goes from 1st and 10 to 1st and 15. They run an insert bubble that gains 5. Then he ran a quarterback draw that gained 11 yards. Yeah. So really, to this point, it's not awful. Okay. It's not awful. And then 2 plays later, he runs a play pass for a touchdown. Okay. So you look at it, they've had 1, 2, 3 drives. Okay. They've moved the ball in 2 of the 3 drives pretty well. They've kind of shot themselves in the foot with a couple of penalties, but have recovered nicely, and they scored. 30 plays into the game, they have a touchdown, and they have a little bit of momentum. Okay, but I think the half ended with just a little 1 play open zone into discussion. So they only had the ball. Understand? I've got them. They had the ball 1, 2, 3, and you can't really even count the last one because they were just kind of running the clock out. Really only had the ball 3 possessions of the first half. Mm-hmm. Now you're looking for at least 12 possessions in the game. That math doesn't equate, Sam. You can do the math on that, figure that out pretty quick. Right? So going into halftime, and I felt this way. I said, they're moving the ball all right. They'll be okay. Game's close enough. It's not like they're getting bombed yet. It'll be okay. But the second half was just not the same. They had a 4 and out, a 5 and out. They had a pretty nice drive, but like you said, it ended in an interception.
Right.
Okay. The one thing I do, like I told you this last week, is I like to watch a quarterback after he throws the interception, or if something goes wrong, how's he going to react? And to his credit, they had a 2-play drive with a 69-yard touchdown versus cover 2. They stuck that ball in the hole, and I believe it was Marsh did a hell of a job of running with it once he caught it. So the recovery was nice. He didn't go in the tank. But there was a 2-play drive there, but they didn't have the ball very long. Okay, and then after that, they had another drive that at that point I think was, I won't say insignificant, but not as significant. I think it lasted for 4 or 5 plays, but it just wasn't. There was, and you said it, they were never really in sync. Although there were some signs, they just weren't getting the ball enough to get into sync. Particularly,
yeah. So I'm with you. I thought the first half was about opportunities. They didn't have the opportunities in the first half.
Yes, and the second half was more about execution. I don't think there's any doubt. Yeah,
totally with you. That was my take on the first half. Like, man, they don't. Every drive, USC has the ball. Getting back to the point, they aren't stopping. The only thing that stopped USC was, turnover. Like Michigan wasn't really stopping them. They're keeping the ball, and the offense isn't really having the chances. The more chances they get, but when they had chances, they were pretty fine.
Yeah.
But in the
And the
second.
offense, remember now, the offense can do something about that. When they get it, hold on to it and do something. It's not all the defense now, but it is what happens is it just generates an impatient mentality offensively. I found it happen when I coach sometimes. You're going, God, are we ever going to get the ball back? And what are we going to do with it when we get it back? What if we go 3 and out again? You know what I'm saying? So it goes beyond just what we're talking about.
Right. So when they do get it back, and obviously you got Justice out, it was, they were okay with Jordan in there, but obviously more of the focus on Bryce. Now you found a couple of receivers. I mean, you had to be heartened
Yes.
by the emergence of Andrew Marsh, who we've been talking about for weeks. Like, you got to put the guy out there. They put him out there. He's producing. And I remember Denard, he was saying, hey, more 12 personnel. I remember saying, the comfort or the lack of comfort that Bryce seems to have at times in the pocket, is it lack of comfort with the reads, or is it lack of comfort with the rush? Well, we see, and you saw him on the drive, he checks it down, right? You see him, he can go through the reads. Seems to be mostly about the rush. Well, they max it up in the red zone, and they get the crossers, and it's a beautiful pass to the corner. So you found a couple of receivers, Al, that I think you're feeling confident in, that they can get open. So I'm asking you now about moving forward. Find a couple of receivers that feel like that's pretty good. I wonder, maybe you go to that a couple of more times, because if he is feeling uncomfortable with the rush, maybe you give him a couple of more max protect opportunities. Hogan Hansen was back. Do you see more opportunities where your tight ends are your number one option? And then last but not least, I'm gonna come back to quarterback running the football. More situations where your quarterback is going to, by design, run the football. And whether it's a +1 run, or a run where the quarterback is likely to run the football, like a bluff. I want some more opportunities where Bryce is going to probably carry the football. I think, 6 to 7 times a game. That's going to be a part, I think, of their offensive mix of success, or his mix of success in games. So what do you think?
I agree with that. Yeah. I think they can add a little bit in that area, and it'll help his confidence with other phases of the game. I just found that there's also just this carryover a lot of times. But I think if you ask me how to get him where he's comfortable with the whole thing, right? I think what I've noticed with Bryce, he's pretty good on quick rhythm throws. He's pretty good running the ball, right? Those types of things. Maybe another trick play here and there, just to generate an explosive. But those are the types of things that helps a guy. But when he's got to throw a quick out to McCulley, he hits it darn near every time. He can throw those balls that don't require a ton of protection. Okay, you can get it in and out fast. Even if a guy doesn't block his guy well, the ball's still out. You know what I mean? But those types of things, but again, and then running the ball with the efficiency that Michigan's demonstrated they're capable of in the past. All those are their ingredients to win. But they got to take advantage of all those chances, because there's times when some plays are there that they're not making. And again, in a game like this, where there's very little margin for error, it's going to show up on the scoreboard. It's just going to. So as he improves, he understands the game better. As they all improve, I think some of these things will come to fruition. But this game was kind of a perfect storm of all the things you didn't want to happen.
Yeah. So at this point, you got to control the controllables. You can't control what happens on defense.
No,
I think we
know that bother you.
Yeah, we know what they have to do. But now the focus is, what can they do to control their own destiny better moving forward, and assuming that they're going to be without Justice Haynes, which seems to be a distinct possibility. Sharon gave I sort of read it as a 50-50. You know, they gave him like a maybe in the press conference. So coming into this game, you know, what's the next step forward coming off of that one? If you say, because you said you felt like the pass pro was better from the week prior in the time where the game wasn't, hey, you got to, now you're down a couple scores and you got to pass and they're pinning their ears back. Now, you know, you have no hope.
Yeah, all bets are off then. I mean, you got to still protect, but your likelihood of being consistently successful is just not as great. So, but in normal down and distances and even in some third downs, the protection was pretty solid for the most part, I thought, in this game.
So give me your step coming off of this game. Give me practice this week heading into Washington. How are you building off of that? What are you adding? What are you adding for Bryce? What are you adding for the offense coming off of what you saw last week to have them take a step forward coming off of that contest?
I think a few more pocket movement passes during the game, maybe a couple more naked passes would be something that I would add when they've done that. He just does that so well. And he does also their RPOs, where he moves a little bit off their RPOs and throws some of the quick perimeter throws. I think those types of things would be a point of emphasis, some more dashes and sprints. And you can't live in that world, don't get me wrong, but just here and there, like I said, about every third play, having the ability to do that and continue to develop his pocket passing, because he can do it. He is capable. But this is something that just takes a while, because they are not a team, Sam, that's a shotgun, throw it every snap team where they're just, they're going to do it so much the quarterback's going to get real good at it fast. They're more of a, run first, balance, blah, blah, blah. So you're not going to be doing as much pocket passing as those other teams might. So the development of the quarterback is not going to be as fast as it is with other teams. So, but I would not give up on that concept, because I think the kid can do it and has shown at times that he can.
So playing from the pocket, there's certain aspects of playing from the pocket where he is more comfortable than others.
Yes.
Drop back is the least comfortable, but max protect, this is the most
play pass. Play pass. See, you got to understand the difference, okay? And this is where the rubber meets the road with this stuff is when you play pass, okay, and like he did there on the red zone and other times, it clears out reads better because people have to bite on the run. So what I call the buzz, the underneath coverage, okay, does not get good distribution on the drops. So you can put layered routes or crossing routes in behind them a lot of times, and they're just not in position to play them. It's easier for the quarterback. Okay, it's just easier for the quarterback. Plus, a lot of times, because those are play passes and they're called on earlier downs, there's less pass rush oriented, right? So people are more likely to play the run first and give the quarterback that extra hitch step to be able to see those throws. So in that regard, I don't think he's bad. He's not a bad play action passer. I think that's good. Now, is it realistic to do that on third and long? Probably not. So now you got to be able to do that. Now, the other thing that he does well from the pocket, Sam, is the quick rhythm throws. The sticks, the hitches, those types of things, the outs, the snap routes, the run down, turn around, 12 yards, backyard button hook type plays. He's good at those, Where he's going to struggle more, where it's going to take longer to develop, is the drive routes, the drive routes, the routes that develop a little bit later. You know what I mean? Where he's got to progress each one of the reads and trust the pass protection, but still be able to time the throws. Those are the things that, is the next step in quarterbacking.
Yeah, I asked Denard that, like, why does he seem to be more comfortable with play passing than he seems to be with just straight drop back? Because there's a difference. Like you can see it, for sure. And at the same time, I think if you're Chip, just that one play, I would think would draw comfort as a play caller from watching Andrew Marsh in this game, watching Donovan McCulley over the last couple of games, and watching Bryce on that one play throw a pinpoint pass when he's comfortable in the pocket. He delivered a dime in the corner. So I'm gonna call a couple more. I'm gonna max it up a couple more times in this game and just say, hey, we can block it. I got a couple guys that are going to get open. I don't necessarily have to have a bunch of guys out in in the pattern, these guys are going to get open, and we're going to take a couple shots here, and we're going to be fine. I'm going to take a couple shots this way.
Yeah, it's to max up your protection is like sprinting out. You can't live in that world, but
I get it.
It is equipment. It's good equipment, particularly if you're trying to get an individual matchup where you know you can get the ball off. You know what I mean? So that's got to be part of the plan, and I think it will continue to be part of the plan. But if you do it too much, you got 7 people covering 2 or 3, and the odds are not good. Nobody to check. But so you got to be use good discretion when you do that. So, but I think all these things combined, called at the right times, timed out at the right times, can all be effective weapons. But remember now something, Sam, is Michigan makes their bones on running the football. Okay, that is that, and they do not, nor do would I like to see them get away from their downhill, hard-nosed, hit you in the mouth style of football. I still think that that's the way they go, the way they win. Okay. And with that, the residuals of that mean you're going to be a better play action team. You're going to get less pass rush on early downs. Certain things are going to open up. Certain things are going to be less threatening, if you will. And when I say that, I'm thinking pass rush more than anything else than they would be if you didn't run the ball. And they have all the answers now. I think their run package is really good. I think he's got all the answers to the things. He can get outside, he can get inside, they can duo. They to me are very complete with their run game. So in the meantime, and in between time, that's what you always say, Sam. In between time, they've got to get some completions and some chunks that keep the chains moving, so you can pound them some more. You know what I mean? And that just really, it didn't happen enough in this football game.
No doubt. So I would hope that one of the adjustments is, kind of like coming off the Oklahoma game, they were very determined to inject more Bryce into the running game. I would hope that would be a one of the real sort of we're determined to do. And then my very last question before we get to the people's questions for you, Al, is how do you get the tight ends more involved in the passing game?
Well, you call their number. That's what you do. You call their number. You don't make them an alternative. Okay. Which they have the ability to, and they have done some of that. I think Hogan Hanson's still getting his feet wet a little bit, but I think he's going to be a factor, but if you want Titans to get the ball, you have to design your plan around, every third or fourth pass, we're looking first to one of those guys. He's not always an alternative receiver. So I think that's how you do it. They have the ability to do that. And I think you'll see more of that. I really do. As in the coming games, you'll see more chip taking opportunities to hit crossing tight ends off play action, hit vertical tight ends off of play action. Those types of things I think you're going to see more and more as he grows more comfortable with the tight ends.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I'll get questions from the people after your grades. I almost think, I get folks are down after the loss. I'm seeing people show up in the chat I haven't seen before. I almost wonder if some of the commentary are almost like Buckeyes dressed up as disgruntled Wolverine fans, because some of the commentary is just asinine. Like, okay, you can be down, you can be disillusioned, but some of this is just ridiculous. Like, come on.
Yeah, don't turn on the troops, for goodness sakes. That's be a good fan, don't you? I mean, you part of being a fan, Sam, is being able to complain. Okay, being able to commiserate with your buddies, talking about how dumb the coaches are. That's part of being a fan. I mean, you got to.
It is,
but don't turn on the troops.
Yeah, some of it
don't turn on the troops. The troops are defending you. Don't turn on the troops. Be smart.
I've never seen before. Like, don't turn straight Buckeye.
No.
Here, especially when there's a lot of season left. I mean, God forbid that if players reacted in the foxhole like this. Yeah. Just imagine for a second if people on the team were as weak-minded or hearted as people are watching.
They're not afforded that luxury. You're right. Yeah,
they aren't afforded that luxury. But just imagine for a second. Oh my God! Everything. It's just no way we'll ever be able to do anything. Might as well just
Overreaction Monday, Sam. It's overreaction Monday at half the college football programs in the country this week.
I will say this, there is no excuse for them to be, run over and run through.
No,
the way that they were, it changes the tone of everything. And that, as much as we talk about controlling the controllables, that affects every aspect of the game. And so we're talking offense here, but they have got to stop the run. I cannot stress enough that is the most important thing coming out of that game. We're going to talk about a million things here on the offensive breakdown. We're going to talk about a million things with Vance on the defensive breakdown. And I'm going to say till I am blue in the face, the most important thing coming out of that game, they have got to stop the run. There is no more important thing for Sharon to stress to his guys, and to the point where they got to be thudding it up in practice, assignment football. Guys got to know where to be. They got to know what their responsibilities are, and they got to be playing it physically. And if it means playing base defense to do it, that's what you got to do, because you cannot be run on the way that they were run on by USC. It affects everything. Everything.
Well, here's the thing, Sam, and you've heard me say this before. The most demoralizing thing for a football team, not just a defense or offensive, to have happen to them is to have the ball run down their throat. That is to me, the most demoralizing thing in football. It's worse than turnovers. It's worse than kickoff returns for touchdowns. It's worse than missed field goals. It's worse than bad punts. It's worse than there is nothing, because it's a slow, painful death. You understand? So that has to be the number one concern, and I'm sure it is. I mean, that's being addressed as we speak, I'm sure, but you just cannot let that happen, because it's going to affect everybody involved.
Yes, sir. All right. So if you have questions for Al, put them in the chat now. If you have questions for Al, put them in the chat now. If you put them earlier in the chat, please repeat them, because I won't, it's tough to go all the way back to the beginning and find them. So I had some people complain, hey, I asked this question earlier in the chat and I miss them a lot. Sometimes I try to go back and get them. So if you ask a question earlier, please repeat it, and I will try to get it in the chat from this point forward. So if you have questions for Al, put them in the chat now. Again, I repeat, if you have questions for Al, put them in the chat now while he gets to his grades. So Al, give me your grades for the Michigan offense, starting with the quarterback.
Okay, that's going to be a quick one, Sam. Other than the receivers, who I gave a B to B+, I gave everybody a C to C-. I don't think the game was played the way the game had to be played to win the game offensively. As much as there were a lot of other issues, I understand all that. But there is a way to control your destiny regardless of what the other side of the ball is doing. And it didn't get done. So I think the offensive line, I gave a C, because I thought they protected pretty well. But there were other issues other places. Okay. Same thing with the tight ends. Same thing with the running backs. And the quarterback still is developing and made some bad throws, made a couple bad decisions, did some good stuff like he does in every game, which I think he's always going to do. But he's got to shore up his whole game. You can't drive 400 yards and miss 3-foot putts. So this is I think as he becomes more complete, as the offense will become more complete.
We got people saying they're burner Buckeyes in here. There's lots of trolls, Sam. There's lots of trolls. I think so too. Definitely, there's reason to be disenchanted and disgruntled, but there are definitely some trolls in here trying to enhance how disgruntled and disillusioned and disenchanted folks are legitimately feeling at this point. There's a legitimate reason to feel angst, legitimate reason to feel concerned.
Part of being a fan, Sam.
Make no mistake. As we get ready to get to the questions, you have questions for Al, get them in the chat right now. and we will pull them up as I am pulling them in. Now, there's so many comments to get through, but let's start getting to the first few questions. So Girk asks, Al, concerns about slow start. Why does it keep happening? Even after a bye week against a weak Wisconsin team, doesn't make sense. Linebackers are getting a lot of praise when tight ends are killing us this year. And I think he's wondering why, not the other way around. But what's the concerns about why the slow starts for Michigan's offense?
That's hard to explain. I don't know. And it's painful, particularly on the road, to start slow, particularly when they started fast. But it's hard. It's hard to explain. That's why I know as a coach, and I think Chip's done this too. Is I really took a lot of time to put together opening plays, knowing that they were going to dictate at least how the game started, which could have a big part in how the game ends. They're not a panacea. You can start like a fantastic, but and then all of a sudden not be able to get a first down in the middle of the second quarter. So it's not the end all. But I just think those first 15 plays have to be really, really well put together and really well timed. Even though they may not be in exactly a 15-play order, you may jump around a little. I think I've mentioned that before. So that you give your team, and in particular your quarterback, the confidence to play the rest of the game with confidence. Okay? So, if you ask me to explain why don't they start fast, I'm not 43 years of coaching. We had real fast starts, and we had not so fast starts with the same approach. Okay? So I wish I had a better answer than that, but I'm just not sure I do.
All right. On to the next one. Dylan Martin says, I may get a lot of hate for this. Bryce needs to develop more and learn defenses. The DBs are playing soft and allowing something.
It's probably a typo. Yeah.
Something to happen when they shouldn't happen. I don't know what he meant there, but yeah, I mean, I what do you see? I think.
Well, he says he needs to learn more about develop more to learn defenses, which I would agree with. He does need to learn more to get, but he's a crash course, guys. Okay, he's a crash course. I mean, bear in mind, and we don't want to make excuses for him because that's easy, right? You give trap doors, but the reality is he's played in 3 hostile environments, tough games. Generally, Michigan starts with a lot more home games, and he can get his feet on the ground a little bit more. Here's a freshman quarterback that's had to play at Oklahoma, had to play at Nebraska, had to play at USC. These are tough places to play, particularly for a young guy. So, as much as he wants to develop all those things you're talking about, there are going to be pains that go with that. I don't care what anybody says. When you got to line up and do all this stuff under this kind of pressure, there are game-specific things that are going to come up that you may have been coached on and still don't execute until you gain the experience and the confidence to execute in those situations. And that's just the reality of the situation. I'm just telling you. In coaching a quarterback 30 years, I'm telling you, that's the reality. I had guys, the first time they were terrible. But the last time they did it, they were fantastic. But it took them a while to go through that.
Yeah, I told you we have Buckeyes in here posing as disgruntled Wolverines. This dude, he's been doing that the whole time. The whole time. But Buckeyes do that.
Evil Empire, Sam. They're the evil empire. Just remember that. Always got to go back to that. It's Darth Vader and evil.
Right. Let's go back to the questions. Oh, well, I'm not gonna get to this dude. that's the troll, by the way. That's the Buckeye troll. We want to put Buckeye trolls questions up. And it says, David Yao says, "Hey Al, would you want to play from the pocket if you were Bryce with this offensive line?"
Yeah, hell yes. This offensive line ain't bad. I mean, you're making that sound a lot worse than it is. Would I want to play with anybody from the pocket with any offensive line if I had to throw it 50, 60 times? No. But I don't think I think this offensive line is a little bit like him. Some of them are developing too. But it has not been that bad. Now, this game wasn't what you wanted it to be, and what anybody wanted it to be. But the offensive line in this game did not do a bad job of pass protection. I'm just telling you. And if you don't if you think they did, you're not very well informed. You haven't watched all 22s and looked at every single player like I have, and I can tell you that it just wasn't as bad as you're trying to make it sound.
Yeah. All right, on to the next one, and it comes from JSJ297. Says we need a legit middle field threat, slot or tight end. They're pinning us down, pinning us down on the outside. I actually thought the outside guys showed up, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think they're pinning us down on the outside. I don't agree with that, but I do agree with the original statement. I think you do need a middle of field threat, a guy that, whether it's a tight end running through the middle of split safety defense or a outside receiver blowing the top off the coverage in a one high look. I think you do. I think that stretches the field so that either you can throw that pass or hits other people. So the first part of that, I agree with. The second part, I'm not so sure.
All right. Next one comes from the Tom Ryder said, our defense let us down too this past weekend. No disputing that. Screen passes killed us. They sure did.
Yeah, they had an interesting little deal they were doing. They were running, in essence, a slip screen without slipping them through the line of scrimmage. They were taking the back, kind of pretending like they're going to chip the end, and then slipping him out, and then putting the tackle and the guard out in front of him, and just waiting for you to drop, having receivers crack back on the inside guys. Good against man, good against zone, and they got us a couple times on that. Very well conceived play and very well.
Yeah, and they kept finding Michigan. They were outnumbered so they were running the screen to the side. Michigan was outnumbered on.
Yeah,
so it's a great. I mean, they were, and I keep getting this question from DJ Sin City. So let's just go ahead and address this right now. It says, why do you keep ignoring the fact they neutralized our pass rush with the quick game? We never made the adjustment to play heads up after somehow we got out conditioned. Screens, quick game. I think that right now, Michigan, they made some concessions as far as their pass defense is concerned. Like they are not a good zone team. They could stand to make no mistake as a spot dropping team. They could stand to have their guys have better zone awareness. I was talking to Will Heiniger about this, and he said, some guys they treat spot dropping like you just drop to a spot. I mean, you drop to a spot, and you have to have some awareness about where you are, right, and what might be coming into your area. And guys, or down in distance, have some awareness. You don't just drop to a spot and just play space, right? So, but I just feel like, and this is my opinion, Al, you being a football coach, an offensive coach, I wonder what your opinion is. I think the best zone teams are pattern match teams. It's just my opinion. So
yeah, well, pattern match is kind of zone. Okay, it didn't, quarters coverage. Yeah, I guess it's zone, but it's kind of not zone too. It's you're matching, right? You're matching it.
Yeah.
So matching means you're going to end up locked on somebody's eventually. You're playing a spot drop jump. Spot drop zone is a high tolerance defense where you're going to drop to a spot, try to restrict the middle of the field, force the ball to the outside, force checkdowns, rally to throws. I mean,
right.
You have to have awareness as you take your spot drops as to what's happening around you, so you can squeeze any inside routes. Okay, the flat defender holds the curl and rallies to the flat, and then rallies to any check down. It's a different philosophy. So it is a pure zone. It is when I started coaching football, that's how you played zone defense. There were no match zones. It was all spot drop 2 deep, spot drop 3 deep, blah, blah, blah.
That's my opinion. So the reason why I say that is I feel like the sort of the potential for them is only a certain level shorter of what they were as a zone defense, because they were a pattern match team and they are not a pattern match team. So their zone defense will never be as good as it was. So let's start that as a baseline. Number one, because structurally they're different. And then number two, within what they do now, they are not proficient. All right. So that's a baseline. The adjustment for them right now in the moment is to play more man. And they are not comfortable playing more man to man at the moment when they're getting, you're getting Caleb Anderson back, you're getting Zeke back, you're getting Rod back. I think Rod played more snaps. I think he played 40 snaps in this game. I think they're, I don't know how comfortable they were with that many snaps for him. I just don't think they're ready for that. And so they've been soft in their coverage on the back end. And I would argue, hey, maybe too soft.
Well, it's hurt him. It's really hurt him, Sam's, on RPO. So SC did this a number of times where they had a run called. He saw soft coverage on the outside, whether it was on the outside receiver, the slot, pull the ball out and threw into the soft coverage and got nice little chunks of not big chunks, but nice gains, So, and then a couple times they got caught. We got caught on a couple hot routes where we were bringing guys and they were just slipping guys into zones, and we had vacated zones for the pressure, and he just got rid of the ball fast. The couple times the guys were unblocked. They weren't even blocked, but the guy was so aware that he just saw the zone. The zone was open. There were less people covering underneath it. He just threw the ball to him. So, there's checks and balances to how you play that way.
Right. So I'm giving you a long answer to it. So like I understand. I understand the holes. I also have a feeling for what they're capable of as far as a remedy is concerned. I think they're going to probably get to a point where they're more comfortable playing some more man. They got to get more proficient in the zone that they do play and get lined up to tempo. They didn't do a good job of that.
Yeah, a couple of times they had trouble getting lined up. It's it's always a combination of things when you didn't play well, and that was a big part of it. Understand that it is much to me, and I've been, when I was a million years ago when I coached on defense, and I've talked to so many defensive coaches. My best man at my wedding's defense coordinator in the NFL for years, and he'll tell you it's a lot tougher to coach zone defense than it is man-to-man defense. There's a lot more to teach, okay? Because there's so many things, because it's a little bit more nebulous, right? I mean, you drop to a zone, who do I have, right? There may be two guys look like they're attacking a zone, but only one really is. You got to figure out who he is, and you got to get in the way of the throw and all that. Where man-to-man, lock it up. I got that cat, you got that cat, in the discussion. So there's a lot of details and a lot of coaching when it comes to coaching zone defense, and in particular spot drop zone.
And so I'll wrap it up with this. Understanding all of that, they have made the concession that, all right, we're going to play soft on the back end right now. We know we're sending this pressure, even with the holes that they have. Like you said, I mean, they're getting out number two aside with these screens. Didn't adjust to that. They're leaving holes in the zone and getting hit with these RPOs. Didn't have a great adjustment for that. If they stop the run, they can get off the field because they're enough. Because their overarching assessment is strategically is teams aren't going to be able to go on methodical marches on us consistently. That they won't be able to go 10, 11, 12 play drives. Sure, we're going to give up some conversions. Teams might hit a 15-yard play here. They might hit a 20-yard play there. They might get a first down here or there. But the number of 10, 12 play drives they get against this defense, they won't do it because we're going to get some negative plays and we're going to get off the field. My argument that I've been making for weeks is against the subpar teams, that'll work. Against the good teams who can exploit you on the ground, it won't, because they're going to keep the chains moving. Not only are they going to be able to hit these plays, these chain moving plays, like they were hitting with the screens and whatnot, they're going to run the football. They're going to run it consistently. And they're going to gouge you. And they're going to have balance like USC just did. Like Oklahoma did it. They just didn't have the big plays on the ground, but they did it. They were moving the chains consistently, running the football. And Oklahoma was a better running team than Oklahoma. I mean, USC was a better running team than Oklahoma even. So they exploited even more. And they ran it down their throats. And if you just paid attention to the stats, you thought, Michigan they're okay. It's a good rush defense. But if you watch them and if you listen to Vance, he would talk about it every week. It's like, hey, man, they aren't fitting these runs well. I mean, if you're watching how they're fitting these gap runs, they aren't fitting them well. It was a thing that was coming up every single week. This is going to get them. Well, it got them. And it's going to get them against good teams again. So you can live in that world where as much as they do need to tighten up their zone defense, they need to do a better job of adjusting the tempo. All these things are true. But if they don't stopping the run, that's the thing that they have no choice. There is no world where they can achieve anything they want to do if they are not a stout run defense. They can achieve they can improve marginally at the other things and be okay. If they don't improve dramatically from what they were as a run defense, there's no tomorrow as far as being able to beat the rest of the teams on their schedule. Talking about like Washington and Ohio State specifically.
Right. And people are going to, until that happens, people are going to continue to exploit what they see on video. Is Michigan's starting point, I think, for stopping the run at this point, it's got to be you got to blow up all vertical seams on down blocks, because that's what's hurting them the most. The split zone backside when the tackle blocks down, and when the counter play, when the tight end or the tackle blocks down, restricting that, whether you're going to wrong arm it or you're going to inside arm it based on force. SC beat them with long traps, with backside guard pulling to trap the end without another man pulling, and the last one he cut all the way back for a touchdown. So you got to blow up those vertical seams on down blocks. That's if you were to pick one thing within the run scheme that I saw, I think that was probably the most important one, is because it seemed to be the thing that was most effective. But I just believe that until that happens, people are going to continue to test those schemes to see if they've been fixed or not.
All right, back to the offense. To the next one. Andres Martinez says, Al, C to C minus. That old line performance is a massive F. How do you come up with
No, that's not. No, that's an uninformed grade. That is not true. That is not true. Again, that's somebody that hasn't seen the all 22, hasn't looked at every single player, just watched the game and was mad and said, they played like crap. No. Offensive line generally protected pretty well in this game and sprung a few runs. It's just there was some ugly plays. And
that's crazy, because the week before they said you were too hard on the offensive line.
What's that?
They said you were too hard on the offensive line.
I thought he was saying that it was he said it was an F.
I'm talking about the week prior against who did they play?
Whatever. I'm not hard on anybody. I grade it like I graded when I coached. They either did it or they didn't. I don't see any faces or know any names. I just know that guy didn't do the job. That's a bad job. That guy did his job. He did a good job. Oh, that guy went over above. I might give him a little bit more credit. End of discussion. They're all just blank jerseys to me. So how they played, they were not an F. That is unfair and an irrational, uninformed opinion from a fan who's probably still mad about the game.
All right. On to the next one, Al. This one from Brian Block 78. Al, Michigan was running check with me play against Oklahoma and Nebraska. Why have they gone away from it?
Oh, they still do some of it. They don't do it all the time. And I don't know if anybody does it all the time, but they still do some of it. There was a couple in this game, as a matter of fact. It's just not one of those They don't look to the sideline all the time. That might be what you're talking about, because they don't do that all the time. I see less of that. I used to see a bunch of that, but I've seen, not just from Michigan, but from a lot of other teams. Is I think what's happening is the defensive guys are kind of caught up with it a little bit. You start peeking to the sideline after a hard count. You get a play based on what the defense looks like they're doing. The defense has it built into their system to where anytime they look to the sideline, we're going to change the defense. They use one word, they'll go green, 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 and the whole defense changes. So it's defeatist. For the reason you did it is not, there's no rationale for doing it if you're not going to get what you were expecting to get. So there's less of that, but it's still there.
All right, on to the next one. Al, we have from Jake Myers, says, I don't feel like lack of discipline is being addressed. What can be done mid-season to get our guys under control?
Well, make them more disciplined. Tell them that either you're going to do what we need you to do, or I got to find somebody that will. It's that simple. Who was it that said that? I think Bobby Knight or somebody says, I got the greatest answer to lack of discipline that you can even, it's called the bench. Okay. Guys know that if there's not a consistency of their play, or they're not at least making an attempt to do what they're coached to do, that you're going to move someone into their spot that's going to make an attempt to do it. So that's the answer.
Okay. On to the next one. This one from Ate, 8531. Should we incorporate some of the quick pass game stuff that USC ran against Michigan?
They actually have it. They already have it. They just don't use it as much as SC. SC is a huge RPO team, very much a spread RPO team. But like I said, we had 24 RPOs in this game. We just hand the ball off more than other teams. Where other teams are throwing those RPOs, Michigan, when in doubt, is running the football, because that's been their culture forever, and that's what's been successful for them.
Okay.
Look how many times, again, you probably need an all 22 to see this, but look how many times is a run play called and somebody outside is running a hitch or a spot route. Look, if you want, the play's up all the time, but how many times it gets thrown, that's a different story.
All right. Mr. Big Dad 48 says, I'm ready to move on. What does Michigan have to do to be successful against Washington?
All the things we said they didn't do in this game. A, run the football with consistency. Okay. Make the routine play consistently when it's there. Receivers open, protection's good, passes got to be complete. Okay. Take care of the football. Don't give them any short range opportunities. Turnovers are the quickest way to get yourself in trouble. Keep those chains moving, because these guys have some of the same capabilities that SC has. They got a very good little quarterback who makes plays, throws the ball pretty well. Doesn't look like much when he comes into the stadium. Go, oh God, that guy's a lot better player than he looks. Okay. So the things that have made them successful in the past are the things that they have to do in this football game. That's simple.
Okay. Jester's Jinx. Gorgeous. So the season is already over? What happened? I thought we were good. Why do we take 2 steps up and 3 back? I played ball, never at the ABS, and I'm flabbergasted. Offensive left tackle?
Jester Jinx, did you guys win every game that you played in FBS? Did everything always go great? You had games, unless you played for Alabama one year, or when I was at Auburn, you had games, and sometimes 2 games, sometimes 4 games, where you didn't play as well. So what do you got to do? You got to pick yourself up, you got to fix your mistakes, and you got to move to the next game. And don't overreact or underreact to anything. Know what has to be fixed and fix it. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and always remember that 90% of coaching is believing in the pupil. So you have to still be convinced that the people that you're coaching can get the job done. And if you don't believe that, then get somebody else to do the job. It's that simple. These are simple equations that go beyond the emotions of losing a football game. You have to be rational enough to understand what you are and what you're trying to get done, and am I playing the right people to get that done? And if I am playing the right people, believing in them and coaching them to get them to do it. It's that simple.
Yeah, I think you gotta I think what you just said was profound in that you said don't overreact, but don't underreact. Like there's a lot of times where you hear the coaches say the first part, don't overreact. I hear coaches say that all the time, but don't underreact. I think is a great point, Al. Don't get into this was just one game. Just throw it out. This is no big deal. I think there are certain pieces of that you can say that about, because I don't think that they were light years. But I think you got caught in a scenario where the snowball was rolling downhill, and you missed the tackle on the fourth down. You missed the open field tackle. You missed the tackle on the third and forever, where you should have squeezed it at the line of scrimmage, and he got rolling downhill. It shouldn't even got to that point. But there are a lot of things that you could have done. But if you just reduce it to that and don't look at the bigger picture and say, hey, we had some issues. If we look at the tape over the first 6 weeks of the season, we've had some issues. We've had some holes defensively that we need to plug, right? Let's plug them. And if we got guys in there that aren't plugging them consistently, then we need to start playing some other guys. It might be that simple. Might be that simple.
They're all, when you're evaluating them, Sam, as a football coach, you're evaluating their play. What happens? There's no numbers or personalities on the jersey. You know what I mean? Now you deal with the kids that way. You deal with knowing what their personalities are. But when you're evaluating them, it's black and white. The job either got done or didn't get done. There's no, because it was Bryce Underwood and he's a 5-star quarterback. That's not so bad. No, I don't coach that way.
You tell me how you did it. From an outside perspective, I think you start with, is my strategy right? Am I putting the guys in the right position?
Exactly. And you got to be brutally honest with yourself, because there were times as a coach, I went back and said, this was not a good approach. You don't ever want to, you don't want to have that happen too much, because they'll find somebody else to do the job. But when you have games and you go back and you say, well, you watch every play with as broad a mind as you possibly can and say, well, man, how many times did we under execute, and how many times did I put them in a position where they couldn't? Okay, because that's hard for some coaches. Coaches, they got big egos and they're very competitive, and they don't want to admit when they did something wrong, or didn't quite. But that's the only way you get better, and in turn they get better. You say, well, maybe. I used to do in my play calling it, I would go through the tape and say, how many bad calls did I have? How many calls where I put them in a position where it just wasn't advantageous, and how many calls weren't bad calls but were truly under executed? Guy missed a block, a guy did this or did that. And I was honest with myself. I just ran a sprint pass into a shark. That is a bad call. Okay, it's just not a good idea, or I exploited a bad matchup somewhere. And so that you can get better as a play call, and they can get better as a team. You got to be brutally honest about where you are. You can't get your ego involved, just like you tell the players not to get their egos involved. You got to make the cause the most important thing, and the cause is to get the game won. So figure out what you got to do to get that done, and if it means altering your strategy or changing something, then you got to do what you got to do.
On to the next one, Al. DJ Sin City, thanks for the super chat. Al asked the question a few weeks back. Do you feel Chip is calling the game and his natural instincts, or more trying to adapt to Michigan's identity?
I think he's trying to adapt to a degree to Michigan's identity, because that's what's made Michigan successful. Whenever you take a job like he's taken, you don't want to, unless the head coach says, I want a complete change. That's happened too now. I've had that happen. They'll say, I want changing how we call the offense, change how we approach it. That's different. But Michigan doesn't need that. What they need is some nuance, some things that I think he's done a very nice job of adding with the screen package, with the outside zone play, with the RPOs. But to say that they are a completely different team, or that he's trying to make somebody happy. I think he's making himself happy by knowing they can execute dual plays and they can execute counterplay, whatever it is, okay? And say, I'm going to keep those. I'm not stupid, for goodness sakes, but I'll add some things that maybe they're not as good of, or I'm even a little more comfortable with calling. So I think it's been a nice, delicate balance for the most part. I don't think that he's trying to acquiesce to anything that anybody, keeping people happy. He's just trying to maintain the culture. And I think that's what's going to help make the team successful.
Okay, on to the next one. This is a good question. Van Dam, how would you help settle Bryce down? He left some clean pockets when looking back at the film. He seems to do well when moving and throwing. How would you help settle him?
I think something you got to do when you're coaching him, what I would do is I would always pause the tape at a point where I thought something different should have happened, okay? Particularly with a quarterback. And I would do this with a lot of positions, but quarterback particularly. You're going through the video with them because they need the picture. They need to see the picture. And the good thing about the video is you get not only a wide angle, but you also get an end zone shot, okay, of everything that he does. So what I would do, okay, if a guy left the pocket early, I would pause as soon as I hit the spot where he should have pushed. He should have climbed the pocket, or done something different, or fronted out, or done something differently. I said, now look at what would have happened had your footwork been better, and you could have maybe slid a little left or slid a little right, or just maybe hitch stepped up in the pocket. Look at how that route opened up. And sometimes those quarterbacks go, oh my God, look what I turned down. Bryce, when you broke the pocket and took off and run, they had 3 defenders came up to take you and left the Z receiver wide open. Pause it and show them. Believe me, this resonates, man. This resonates. They see it. You can talk about it all you want. They need to see the picture consistently and realize what they could have been turning down. You asked, that's one way that I would go about driving home my point.
Mm-hmm. All right, on to the next one for Al. The questions continue to flow in. The next one is a lot of Bryce, same Bryce question over and over again, but this is a cut from a different cloth, more of a statement. Bryce Underwood is a freshman QB. It takes time to learn how to read defenses. There are defensive coaches twice his age who spend their entire day trying to stress and confuse QBs, especially freshman QBs.
That's a very informed. It's not a question, but it's a very informed statement. Got to understand something. This is the philosophy of most defensive coordinators. I do not want to play the game against the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator gets paid to figure out how to trick me. He gets paid to figure out the routes that attack man-to-man. He gets paid to figure out the routes that attack zone. He gets paid to figure out what running plays are most vulnerable against 3-4, who's running against 4-3, blah, blah, blah. The quarterback doesn't get paid to do that. The quarterback gets paid to take the instruction of the offensive coordinator and then just kind of let it rip, right? If I can confuse the quarterback, I got it. I don't want to be predictable enough where the coordinator is calling the perfect play based on what I'm doing defensively because he's going to make it easy on the quarterback. So the whole idea is, particularly in the passing game, the running game too, to a degree, is play the game against the quarterback. And the less experience he has, the less understanding he has, the more chance I have of putting him in a bad situation. Complicate that with the fact that we're going to hit him some and get him where he's a little nervous in there. And now I got him where I want him. Okay. Find a way to affect the quarterback, whether physically or mentally, and preferably both. And you are doing your job as a defensive coordinator. But don't play the game against the offensive coordinator. That's not the best approach, in my opinion.
All right, on to the next one. This comes from, so we continue to go to these questions, the starred questions. Do you think Bryce is staring down receivers too much? That from Javon McClain.
Nah, I don't. I think he's making, in most instances, and again, you'd have to watch every play here so you can make your point or whatever. There has been times where you could see the wings popped out too quick. Okay, there's been times. I don't say that's never happened, but he tries in a lot of instances, and I watch that closely now. And all you got to do is go to the end zone copy to see whether that's happening or not. And we always talk about how the wings on the helmet tell you where the quarterback's throwing. It's a great thing about Michigan's helmets is he tries a lot of times to hold his helmet to the last minute before he makes a throw. Because you can't, at one point, you got to look out there, right? I mean, your eyes got to see what's going on. But to say that he's a blatant offender of that, I don't know that he is, but I won't say it never happens either.
Okay, on to the next one for Al. We will go to, who do we have here? George S. Scarborough on Facebook says, do you think Michigan will make the adjustments this week that we are worried about on offense and defense, Al?
Yeah, I think they will. I think sometimes you need a game like this to get woke up to some of the realities of the situation, because sometimes you play teams that don't exploit some of the things you weren't doing as well. And SC did that on both sides of the ball. And I think it can be an awakening for the coaches and an awakening for the players and can be beneficial in the games in the future.
Okay. Al, as we try to, I think I'm going to be able to get all these in. G Blood 13 on Facebook. Al, did you notice they ran more tempo on Saturday? What do you think about having more of that?
I like it. I like it. I like tempo, and I've said this dozens of times. I like tempo as equipment for your offense. I don't like tempo as a steady diet, and I don't think you're even suggesting that, so I'm not saying you are. But yeah, I think that's always good stuff. Something Chip likes to do is after first down, you'll see them rush to the ball and run another play. Kind of attack mentality when the defense is down, and I think you'll see more and more of that. But I like tempo at times. And I think it's really, really a good little piece to add, and it really can throw the defense out of whack if it's not done all the time. Now, in the old days, it threw the defense out of whack all the time, but so many people did it that the defense is adjusted, and the tempo, you see less of it than you used to. Less of the offenses wanting to run 80 plays and all that stuff. I see less of that than I used to because defenses have adjusted to it. So now make it something you do occasionally, not something you do all the time. And I think it could be very effective.
Okay. On to the next one. This one from Andres Martinez says, in all seriousness, this offense feels like it needs a total overhaul next season. If Bryce was playing for USC on Saturday, they'd have scored 60, Al Borges.
No, they wouldn't have. No, they would. The responsibility that's being put on the quarterback at USC is far beyond what's being put on at Michigan because the USC quarterback has played more than Bryce. Bryce would have to be more of a factor in their offense because they throw the ball a little bit more. He'd do some good things, don't get me wrong. But if you made that same statement in a year or so, I'd say I would tend to agree with you. That may very well be true, but not at this point in his career. I think that's highly unlikely, but who knows? I mean, we're both just guessing, right? We don't really know, but that my instincts tell me that no, I don't think that would happen at all. But he'd have his plays because they would give him opportunities, but he'd have his mistakes too.
Okay. Next one comes from Anwar Williams on YouTube. I feel like our best players are not the leaders like 21 to 23. Our best players are freshmen and sophomores, and I think it's a locker room issue. What do you think, Sam and Coach?
I'm not in the dynamic on a daily basis, so I couldn't really tell. I couldn't really answer that. It would be grossly unfair for me to judge who the best leaders on the team are when I'm not there every day listening to them talk to each other.
So I think you gotta distinguish what you're talking about. I think the best players at certain positions are definitely the younger players. I do not think, you discount the leadership of Rod Moore in particular, who is obviously the eldest guy on the team, right? So he stands out to me. Max Bredesen.
Mm-hmm.
Is also one of the eldest guys on the team. So those are guys that I would not, as far as voices are concerned, especially at a time like this, that I wouldn't just, write off and say they got a locker room issue. Talent wise, I do think that the talent on the roster is heavily skewed toward the younger classes. You look, there was a lull, there was a recruiting lull toward the end of the championship era. The last couple of classes of the Harbaugh cycle, and I don't think that is necessarily aligned with Jim possibly heading to the NFL. I think it is the convergence of events. Maybe the more serious dalliance with the NFL, but the bigger issue was NIL and Michigan not being as involved in the NIL process as its contemporaries in the initial onset. Now, now they are a player in the to the fullest extent, and you don't you obviously have coaches that are dog hit recruiters combined with that, and I think you see the recruiting results to bear that out. But I think what you've seen is the result, the recruiting boom as a result of that, start to reflect that Michigan is a real NIL player with coaches that get out and beat the trail recruiting wise, and you start to see the talent on the roster stack in those classes. So that's why I do think there's a point to what the viewer is saying, that the majority of the talent is in those classes because there was a lull toward the end of that era. But I don't think that you have a locker room issue in terms of leadership because of the guy. I know there are other captains too. I don't want to discount them, but those are the two guys that I think of first when I think of leadership on this team. I think of Rob Moore and I think of Max Bredesen. And I don't think because of them, I don't think that there's a locker room issue. No, I do think that you got some guys. Now, make no mistake, I do think that you have some guys who, if you're being honest, everybody, they got to be challenged. Got to be challenged. What you saw on the field, even by some veteran guys, just, hey, that's not acceptable. We talked about it at receiver when guys are dropping passes. You talking about it on defense where, hey, if guys aren't playing the technique, if they aren't playing responsibility football or aren't playing, physically at times like you need it to be played. Hey, just like coaches gotta question what they do. If players aren't getting lined up the tempo consistently, that's a coaching thing. You got to get them lined up, right? If players aren't squeezing plays like they gotta squeeze them, if they aren't fitting things properly like they're coached to do, then you got to get other guys in there. Really is that simple. All right, on to the next one. Next one. So I think this is a Devin thing. I think this is a Devin.
No, that's not good. I don't like the start of that.
I think this is a Devin. This is a Devin question. Because I think Devin said something like this. Do you think Sherrone Moore is making the team soft? I don't know if Devin said that, but it looks like he's trying to be a friend rather than a head coach. I do think that Devin said something about that. So what's your opinion on that part, Al?
I don't think he's making the team soft. I mean, what he's trying to do, I think at times is keep the team up and show them a sign of strength when things are going bad, and different coaches react differently based on their personalities, right? I mean, some guys, the guy in Indiana, if he smiled, his face would crack, right? He just isn't going to do it. That's just the way he is, okay? Jerome is more upbeat, and he's more, move on to the next play, try to keep players encouraged. But you work within your own personality. And if you told me that I thought you told me Michigan was soft, I'm not seeing soft. I mean, they had a bad game. I'd be the first one to tell you that. But prior to that, Michigan set their entire offense and defense up so that they're not soft. Now, are they executing it the way they want? Yeah, probably not. But I don't think that there's a soft message being sent in anything that I've seen. So, you draw your own conclusions based on what you see, and you're certainly entitled to those opinions. But I know if you put the camera on 20 head coaches, you'd probably get 20 different reactions to good or bad. What are you laughing about, Sam?
I'm laughing at this book. So I am going to remove a Buckeye troll from this chat. And for all of those who have been saying that this is a Wolverine fan who has been posting in this chat the whole time. Oh, no, he's just been, there have been a few guys that have been defending him, saying he's a Wolverine fan. No, he's just speaking the truth. He's just being honest. This should remove all doubt. This guy he's been on this whole time saying, hey, Michigan, they won't win another game. They're going to lose all the rest of their games. And we just got to be honest. We just got to be fair and not sugarcoat the truth.
Yeah, we got to check the background on this guy a little bit. Send out an FBI guy to check the background. Right.
So this latest Jim. He says, we might want Bryce to stay, but if we're honest about his best interest, Michigan isn't the place to get elite QB development. If he's smart, he'll transfer. This from a Michigan fan, right? So I'm just putting it up. So you guys know that I am about to remove him and all of his comments from this chat. Because look, we will allow for discontent. We will allow for being disgruntled, right? But we won't allow for you to be disingenuous, right? For a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? To inflame and incite, which is what this guy has tried to do the whole time. So I mean, I get it. Buckeyes are miserable in their own existence. Because they, listen, I get it. You couldn't enjoy that championship last year because you couldn't beat Michigan. It was the I can't beat Michigan national championship. So you got to try to do it this year to try to get a legit national championship where you actually do beat Michigan. We'll see if it happens this year. Seems like a better shot, but I'm certainly not conceding that game. Let's wait to see.
That he's decided that after 6 games that he's not going to get developed as a quarterback. Is that what we're saying right here?
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, no, I know what he's saying.
But we are getting rid of all of those comments right now. Getting rid of all his comments. Getting legitimate ones in here before we go. DJ Sin City with another super chat said, Al, do you think Bryce would benefit from having Chip on the sideline during
that's a hell of a question. That is a hell of a question. Because I've done both. I did more on the sideline. That was 23 years I was on a sideline as a coordinator, and I think 7 years I was in the booth. And there's checks and balances to both. And a lot of times I will say this, who the quarterback was did make a difference. Now, again, it's a dynamic that I'm not around all the time, so I don't really know. Okay. And you got to decide that is it going to be more beneficial for me to go to the sideline and lose some of the things that I have in the booth that concern the entire offense, not just the quarterback. Okay. So, and that may be foremost in his decision on that. But there are benefits to it. There are. I won't say there's not. Otherwise, I'd be a hypocrite because I did do it for a long time. But I think the coordinator at the end of the day has got to go be in the position where he feels the most comfortable calling the offense. Okay, and sometimes maybe depend on other people to manage the emotions or the whatever of the quarterback. But I can't just dispel that question because there are times it may be beneficial to do that. Again, I'm giving a wishy-washy answer to what is not a black and white answer. Just FYI, that is not a black and white answer, but it is one hell of a good question.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last few for you. This one from JW0284. Al, our screens are not good at all. The wide receiver gets hit a yard or two down the field, and the only one that has worked needed the wide receivers to run over someone to get 10 yards. So wide receiver screens, running back screens. What do you think of Michigan's screen game?
Well, it hasn't been too bad. And again, I think he's probably talking about bubbles more than anything.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of those have been hit and miss, so it's not a completely uneducated opinion. But the pure screen game, where you're putting people in front, linemen in front of the back and doing those types of things is definitely better than it's been in the past. I don't think anybody can argue that. But remember something about screen passes. They're about a 50-50 proposition, okay? It's a screen pass is a finesse play, okay? It's a play where you're trying to suck people up the field and then put people in behind where they rushed, and then the back kind of sneaks into an area depending on what kind of screen you're running or the tight end, So if they, for some reason, want to defend that play, a lazy player can stop a screen. Okay, a player that's not even playing hard can stop a screen. But when you hit them, the good thing about screens, when you hit them, they're usually big chunks of yardage, so they're worth the bad play every so often. They're worth the play that doesn't work as well because the next play may get you 25 yards, 30 yards, or whatever. So, but that part of their game has not been too bad. They did not screen a ton in this game, but they have in the past, and it's gotten better. So,
yeah. All right, so Al, I think we have gone. That's enough overtime for this week.
Sam, yeah, we've logged some hours. I want an increase in my pay on this overtime.
Al, you got 2,000. You got 2,000 people still in the room asking your questions and wanting to break down. It's always that way after a loss. Just so you know.
Oh no, yeah, they want to know. They want to know. When they win, they want to celebrate, but when they lose, they want to know.
Yeah.
It's not that we have all the answers, but we have some answers. I mean, we can, we study it and look at it.
And just so you know, that Buckeye troll, Daniel Thornton, said that page was created a few days before our run against Ohio State began back in November 24, 2021.
There's your FBI agent right there, Sam. There's your guy. We got to send him out.
You thought he was going to be able to get one off, and then he had to wait. Then he was going to come back next year. Then he had to wait. Then the next year, so he comes back around probably comes back around every year with just when he thinks he's ready to pounce, and he's like,
he's a mole, Sam. He's a mole. He's a mole.
Now he's feeling pretty
covert
good.
operation, Sam.
Yeah.
It's what is it? Subversive from within. That's what he's trying to do. Make it perceive it.
He's feeling pretty confident now. Like I can finally use this. Get after Michigan. Okay. We'll see. We'll see if they get the fixes in. But Al, I mean, yeah, just give me you go through this week of practice, your approach. What your approach will be with Bryce, what your approach will be this week with the entire team as you head into what is a pivotal home game against Washington.
Well, if I was to assess the game in its totality and point to something that I felt needed to improve the most, it's pretty much fundamental play. Schemes, people are going to critique schemes. There's no way to get away from that. But schematically, Michigan, to this point, I think, has proven they're pretty good at it. They're not bad at how to attack. But some fundamental issues have got away from us in this game. So I think the emphasis in practice is get back to footwork, technique, hand placement, how are we going to do our drops, how are we going to run our routes, how are we going to step on blocks on both sides of the ball. Just get back to some fundamental issues and put them in positions where they can execute those fundamental components. And that would be my approach. Now, I've never believed a guy, you say, well, back to the drawing board. Well, that means no. Just go back and teach what you taught from day one. and make sure that it's getting done. And if it's not, finding somebody that can get it done. That may sound overly simple, but I believe it is the what has to be done for the team to take the next step. I really believe that. So
100%.
whatever that's worth.
100%. With that, Coach Borges, appreciate you for being your gorgeous self, Al. You know?
Yeah, Sam, I'm always my gorgeous self. I'm just not as gorgeous when we lose. And when we lose to USC, Sam, I am not gorgeous. I was cursing at the television set the other night. Cursing, Sam, using foul language that I'm ashamed of.
It was tough to sit up there.
It's not good, Sam. Not good at all. Not good at all. I don't like them, Sam.
Right? You got to take it. His team went out there and rushed for 220 plus yards on you.
Oh man! I looked at the statistics after the game and I said, "No, is this Michigan? This isn't Michigan. This never happens." You know. So, but SC's pretty good. You know, they're pretty good.
That may be. I'm not disputing that. I'm not taking anything.
I'm not
taking anything away.
Yeah.
From them or their performance. They are talented. They are better on the ground. He has had some good rushing teams in the past. There is no way they should ever run for 200 plus yards on Michigan. Period. Should not happen. Cannot happen. Inexcusable. You cannot allow that to happen. So,
I'm sure they'll fix it. They got the same concerns we have. So I'm looking forward to some of those things being fixed. So.
Yep, and it all plays together. I mean, defense has to stop it. Offense has to sustain drives. Punting game has to flip the field, right? You know, that affects the posture with which they play. All of that affects everything. So they got to improve in all facets. So with that, stay tuned, folks. In about, 10 minutes, we're going to go live with Vance on the defensive breakdown. So be sure to tune in for that.
I think I'm going to listen to that one, Sam. I'm going to listen to Vance. I want to hear what he's got to say because I know there's going to be some pearls of wisdom come out of his mouth.
Oh, yeah. Vance got the all 22 this week. So he was like,
oh, yeah. He's loaded for bear. Forget about it.
Bear. Pulling no punches. Always brutally honest. You know, so we're going to get an honest assessment.
All right, man.
On the other side. So stay tuned for that. At any rate, though, we'll see you next time on the next edition of the Michigan Football Breakdown, focused on the offense with Al Borges. We'll see you then.
Go Blue.